Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's time to wrap up that matchup that we just saw in NFL Week 14. Sunday Night Football, stakes were at their highest, and I talked about this game. Coming out of it, it will be one team that we're going to view a little bit differently. Will it be the Dallas Cowboys? Would it be the Philadelphia Eagles? And really, to what I thought, I think this game went a little bit differently. I don't even think that it was just one team. I think we came out of this one viewing both of those teams a little bit differently. The Dallas Cowboys defeated the Eagles 33-13 as they moved to 10-3 and took control of the number one seed in the NFC East. Now, this is something that's huge, and I talked about it a lot. I said Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, two guys who want all roads to come through Dallas when we talk about playoff football. I think that what we've seen in past years, some of the wild card seeds, being in a situation where even if you win the East, you get against some of those better and more competitive football teams. I think that all looking at this, if you get into it, the only team that you may have to go on the road against if you continue to win out will be the San Francisco 49ers. Dak Prescott on the day, 24 of 39, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns, continuing to make his MVP bid. And I think the way that he played last night, that wasn't even the best Dak Prescott that we've seen thus far. It was a good Dak Prescott. It was a solid Dak Prescott. But I think one thing that he even said himself in the press conference, he holds himself to a little higher standard. He's very critical of himself. And I think that's the way to be, especially when you play that quarterback position. Don't let the outsiders get into your ear, because when you play bad, they don't love Dak. When you play good, they love Dak. But I think last night he did what he had to do to get the job done. Jake Ferguson continuing to make those rounds at that tight end position. 5 receptions, 72 yards. We're seeing it. I think that when you get out of a Dalton Schultz, you draft a tight end and a Luke Shoemaker, and then you have a Jake Ferguson on the other side of that, just to see how he's been able to be Dak Prescott's security blanket. I think he's building confidence in the offense. Mike McCarthy, they trust him. He's that guy outside of a CeeDee Lamb and a Brandon Cooks when you want to go across the middle of the field. And he's really athletic. He's getting yards after the catch. He's breaking these tackles. We're seeing the route running, the decisiveness against zone versus man coverage. So good props for him, and just great to continue to see that from Jake Ferguson. CeeDee Lamb on the day, 6 receptions, 71 yards, 1 touchdown. And I think what we saw was a more physical football team. And we're going to talk about Philadelphia a little bit, but I think to have the combination of Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle, 28 carries, 105 yards. Rico Dowdle had the touchdown. They tried to overturn it, but it stood as called, and it was a touchdown down there on 3rd and goal. So I think that when we talk about physicality, what we had coming into this game, what we thought about the Philadelphia Eagles, and I said it coming into this one, I think the Dallas Cowboys are playing better football right now. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are still that team deep down in there somewhere, but if I continue to see the same problems, and I continue to see the same problems last night, when we talk about offense for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're going to talk about defense as well, but we've constantly seen that theme of defense getting torched in the back end. What we see in the front seven, can they stop the run? And early on in the season, that was where they leaned their hard hats. But lately, they haven't been able to do that as well. And we know that they're struggling right now to cover just about anybody. But offensively, I think that when you have all of those guys, all of the talent, Dallas Goedert was back on the football field. You still got DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell back there as your running back tandem. Even on a perimeter, when you have a Devontae Smith and a A.J. Brown, I don't think right now Brian Johnson is in a situation where Jalen Hurts is comfortable. He's comfortable even calling the plays or referring to Brian Johnson. It's like, okay, usually what we saw last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, they run the football. They dominate you at the line of scrimmage. Jason Kelce, let's get him on the perimeter. Let's pull him. Let's wheel him outside. Or we can get Lane Johnson. Let's get physical there. Let's run behind a Landon Dickerson. Let's run behind a Isaac Seumalo. That's what they had last year. He's now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we can run behind a Jordan Mailata. We're not seeing that this year from the Philadelphia Eagles. And even with that, now that stunts the RPO. How hard are those linebackers going to come up and really bite on the run play if you don't have the run to actually threaten a linebacker? Now we're sitting in those holes. Now we can spy Jalen Hurts a little bit more. That's making it easier on the defense. Even when we're saying, okay, is Jalen Hurts 100% healthy? All of these things start to rumble in our minds. All of these things which we have to talk about. And I say, okay, if that's not working, there's no real scheme where we're saying that, okay, let's get in the intermediate. Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, all of these receivers that we have, Olamide Zaccheaus, Quez Watkins, there is no constant theme where we're just dinking and dunking. We're getting 5-7 yards consistently. That's not even working for the defense. And I think even offensively, when you're trying to take your shot play, I've never seen Lane Johnson get dominated on that pass rush snap like he did last night against Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons came off him. He tried to get into his kick step. Before you even knew it, Micah Parsons was in the lap of Jalen Hurts. I've never seen that from Lane Johnson. Hall of Fame right tackle, still a very elite right tackle in the game of football, but we saw that last night. So even trying to push the football deep, and we got to give credit to the Dallas Cowboys defense, because as much as we want to say Dak Prescott MVP bid, everything we saw, like I said, passed for 271 yards, I still want to go back to the defense because DaRon Bland, he shook back a little bit from what we saw in that Seattle game. Stephon Gilmore, he said A.J. Brown called him old. That lit a fire underneath him. So we saw that in the football game, forcing the fumbles. A.J. Brown had a fumble. Jalen Hurts had a fumble. I believe it was Donovan Wilson that forced that one on Jalen Hurts. Then Devonta Smith had a fumble. So that's 3 offensive turnovers when you're already struggling on offense, and then when the pass protection is not getting there. Now, I don't know how many people are going to say it, but that guy Tank Lawrence, I call him Tank. Some people refer to him as DeMarcus Lawrence. Number 90 for the Dallas Cowboys is a top 10 pass rusher. And I think that when he got his money, we said, okay, where is he a little bit? I think that his play dipped just a little bit, but now we're seeing him thrive because he's not that number 1 pass rusher. That's Micah Parsons. So when you have a guy who was a 1, who got paid like a 1 at the time, who's a very good pass rusher, now you pair him with a booking in Micah Parsons. You still got Ziggy playing like a top 5 defensive tackle in all of football right now. So you're seeing these things start to come along a little bit with the defensive line. And like I have mentioned, the back end, a Malik Hooker back there. So it was something that we saw on the defensive side of the ball. And like I said, offensively, I think more physicality, more execution. Even though Dak Prescott, I think he had to settle in a little bit. Early on, they tried to get the football to Tony Pollard in the passing game. Like I said, Jake Ferguson. But you look at these things and say, okay, this is something that cannot happen again for the Philadelphia Eagles. When we talk about how legit and how good are the Dallas Cowboys, like I said, I think it's San Francisco right now. San Francisco is just on a different level. I'm not saying that when we get to these matchups, they're just going to run the table and go undefeated, but I think right now I would have to see somebody beat San Francisco. And then I have my Dallas Cowboys. And then I have my Philadelphia Eagles. Those are my rankings right now. San Fran, Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm looking at that. And I think even with the Philadelphia Eagles is something where you say, okay, now if we get into playoff football, is this the team that we are? It's week 14 of the NFL season. For the longest, we've been saying it. They're not playing their best football, but they're winning games. Now they're not winning games. Now people want to harp on those problems. This is something I've been saying, something I've been trying to point out for the Dallas Cowboys. They finally beat a team who a lot of people consider better than the rest, the cream of the crop. I think that when you beat the Seattle Seahawks, we're saying, okay, they're a pretty solid team. They have a lot of talent, but they haven't been getting it going fully this season. Okay, you beat some other teams. You beat the New York Giants. You beat the Washington Commanders. They don't respect those wins like they respect the one that we saw last night. So we finally got to see that from the Dallas Cowboys. I think that if they got into a rematch, NFC Championship type rematch, NFC Divisional type rematch with the San Francisco 49ers, I don't think it would look the same. Like I said, I have to see somebody beat San Fran, but I think that this is a different Dallas team also, especially offensively. So it's just a lot of things that we saw in this football game. I think we saw that for the Philadelphia Eagles, still got to clean those things up. A lot of things that you look at and say, okay, this has been what we've doing. This has been what we've been doing this season. Jalen Hurts, all of those guys, Hassan Reddick, they had a lot of things to say in the press conference. So you're looking at that and you're just saying, okay, we understand a lot of what we have to fix. We've understood this for really the duration of the season, but now we're going to take it a little more serious. We got our tails whipped in the past 2 weeks. San Francisco, Dallas, something that just can't happen. And then when you have for the Dallas Cowboys, now we say, are they legit? And I think that I do respect the Dallas Cowboys. I respected them for a long time. And I said, even when they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, even when they lost to the San Francisco 49ers, laying eggs. But if they play their best, we saw a team that didn't even play their best last night, I don't think, but they played good enough to dominate at that level. Philadelphia Eagles came down a little bit. I think what we're going to have to say is that when we talk about those 3 teams, San Fran, Dallas, Philadelphia, if we get into a situation where we've seen all 3 teams struggle a little bit, I think we saw San Francisco. They went on a 3-game skid. No Trent Williams, no Deebo Samuel. We saw the Dallas Cowboys kind of play some up and down football. They had to lose to San Francisco. They had to lose to Philadelphia, even though I don't think it was their worst performance. But you have those late game mishaps. That loses you that football game. Then they have the loss to Arizona. We've seen these teams play really ugly games. We're seeing the Philadelphia Eagles right now. They're reeling a little bit. Having a loss to New York. We saw them when they're not at their best. Having a loss to San Fran, then having a loss to Dallas. We've seen all of these teams have 3 losses. All teams sit at 10-3 right now. So I think the biggest question, how I want to end this video is, if all teams play at their best, and I think that right now, it really is consensus probably going to be San Francisco. But if all teams play at their best and they get into a playoff situation, it's one and done, it's win or go home, who has the best shot? I think that the way we've been looking at the Dallas Cowboys before this game is, okay, they're probably going to run the table with one of those wild card teams. But if they play one of those elite teams, they just can't sit at that same table. I think it's a 3-team table right now. In Philadelphia, they have to be careful. They're going to get knocked out of this table because it's going to be San Fran and it's going to be Dallas. So I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. That's going to do it for today's show. And now, we out.